ولا شبيه ولا مثيل له ولا ضد ولا ند ولا جسد ولا صورة ولا أعضاء له. كان الله ولا مكان، فهو الآن على ما عليه كان. فلا تضربوا لله الأمثال، ولله المثل الأعلى. تنزه ربي عن الجلوس والقعود، وعن الحركة والسكون، وعن الاتصال والانفصال. لا يحل فيه شيء ولا ينحل منه شيء، ولا يحل هو في شيء، لأنه ليس كمثله شيء. مهما تصورت ببالك فالله لا يشبه ذلك. ومن وصف الله بمعنى من معاني البشر فقد كفر. وأشهد أن سيدنا وعظيمنا وقائدنا وقرة أعيننا محمدا عبد الله ورسوله ونبيه وصفيه وحبيبه وخليله، أرسله الله هدى ورحمة للعالمين، هاديا ومبشرا ونذيرا، وداعيا إلى الله بإذنه سراجا وهاجا وقمرا منيرا. اللهم صل وسلم وأعظم وأنعم وأكرم على هذا النبي الكريم سيدنا محمد خاتم النبيين، كلما ذكره الذاكرون وغفل عن ذكره الغافلون. الصلاة والسلام عليك يا سيدي يا رسول الله. الصلاة والسلام عليك يا سيدي يا حبيب الله. الصلاة والسلام عليك يا سيدي يا عظيم الجاه. أما بعد، فنذكر أنفسنا بإخلاص النية لله تعالى في حضور هذا المجلس، مجلس علم الدين، المجلس الذي وصفه رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم بأنه روضة من رياض الجنة، والمجلس الذي تحفه الملائكة وتنزل فيه الرحمات والبركات والأسرار، والمجلس الذي ينال المسلم المخلص فيه ثوابا عظيما. فإن رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم قال: يا أبا ذر، لأن تغدو فتتعلم بابا من العلم خير لك من أن تصلي 1000 ركعة، أي من النوافل التامات. فهنيئا لمن وفقه الله تعالى لهذا العمل العظيم. I praise Allah, I glorify Him, and I thank Him for all the blessings that He gives without Him being obligated to give anything. And I ask Allah Ta'ala to raise the rank of our beloved Prophet Muhammad Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam and to protect His Muslim nation. I testify that no one deserves to be worshipped except Allah, the one without a partner, the one without an equal, the one without a similar, the one who is unlike anything in the universe and nothing in the universe is like Him. He has no father, no mother, no sister, no brother, no son, and no daughter. He exists without time and place because He is the creator of time and place. He does not reside above the throne, and He is not attributed with fatigue, like the Jews say. Our Lord is glorified beyond any imperfection that the non-Muslims attribute to Him. Whatever you imagine in your mind, Allah Ta'ala does not resemble that. And whoever attributes an attribute of the creations to Allah is outside of Islam. And I testify that Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, the son of Abdullah, the son of Abdul Muttalib, the son of Hashim, the son of Abdul Manaf, from the tribe of Quraysh, is the best creation of Allah and His final prophet and messenger, sent to all humans and jinn, and He is truthful about everything that He conveyed of the revelation. Thereafter, we remind ourselves to have the sincere intention for the sake of Allah in attending this session of Islamic knowledge, because having the sincere intention is a requirement to get the reward. So the Muslim, whenever he does a good deed, he has to have the sincere intention for the sake of Allah to get reward for that good deed. The reward is defined as the compensation that the Muslim receives in the hereafter for the good deeds that he did in this life among what makes him happy. An example of the reward that is guaranteed to the righteous Muslim in the grave is that his grave is expanded approximately 105 feet by 105 feet, and his grave is illuminated with a light similar to the light of the full moon, and the fragrance of paradise will be present in the grave. The sincere intention means for the Muslim to do the good deed, seeking the acceptance of Allah only, and not the praise of the people. So alhamdulillah, we are grateful to Allah. We are happy that Allah Ta'ala has guided us to Al-Islam, which is the greatest endowment. And so, if it were not for Allah guiding us to Al-Islam, we would not have been guided. So we are grateful and thankful to Allah. We praise Him for having guided us to Al-Islam. And we are thankful and happy that Allah Ta'ala has also willed for us to have access to the authentic chains of Islamic knowledge. The authentic chains that are connected back to the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Because it is through the knowledge of Ahlul Sunnah, it is through the knowledge that the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam transmitted. That is the key to paradise. That is the life of Islam. And that is what you need in order to succeed. So anything that the human being wants to do in this life is not only specific to Muslims, meaning that the rules and the revelation that we follow, it doesn't just apply to us. The accountable non-Muslims, they have to embrace Islam and fulfill all the obligations and refrain from all the sins. So it's not something that's just specific to us as a specific demographic of people, because Islam is not centered in a specific country or to a specific gender or to a specific social class or to a specific time period or to a specific season. Islam can be applied and implemented in all situations by any group of people anywhere on earth and at any time that a human being is alive in this world. Because the fact of the matter is that the system of Al-Islam is the system that is the most beneficial for the human being, both in this world and in the hereafter. So, ideally, if every single person followed the system of Al-Islam, there would be no injustice. But because we are humans, and because we are imperfect creations, not always does the individual follow what is the proper teaching. Instead, they follow their own desire, or their own opinion, or their own perspective, or their own mentality. It's something that is part of the human condition. And we are all under that category. Because for sure we're not prophets. And prophets, they're the only ones who are, as is mentioned in Arabic, ma'asum. Ma'asum, it means that they are protected from certain attributes. So those things would never occur with them. And because they are special. Yani, Allah Ta'ala made the prophets in a way that the things that certain humans are attributed with, they never have that. And so there's a wisdom behind that, there's a teaching behind that. Among the wisdoms behind that is so that we, the imperfect ones, the ones who are not ma'asum, so that we follow in their example. Because most of the transgressions and injustices that the human being does comes from a false sense of status, a false sense of arrogance, a false sense of pride. The person would think that they are above something, or that something is beyond them, or that something doesn't apply to them. So it's a form of arrogance, a form of pride, a form of looking at oneself highly. But that's not how the prophets were. So how to bring that point? The prophets, they are truly the ones who are high. The prophets, they are truly the ones who are perfect. The prophets, they are truly the human beings that look the best. Like, you know, when you wake up in the morning and you have to get stuff out of your eyes, and maybe you have some drool coming down your cheek. Na'udhu billah, subhanallah. And you know the situation of the human being when they wake up in the morning. The prophets, they don't have that. Allahu Akbar. The prophets, they don't have that. They have the perfect image, the perfect aesthetic. Even from waking up, they really woke up like that. But the people like us that are not prophets, we need to fix ourselves before we can even, let's say, tolerate our own situation. But the prophets know. The prophets always glimmering, glistening, looking perfect. That's just the physical. How about character? Humbleness, honesty, generosity, pardoning, forgiveness. When they're the ones who are truly the perfect ones, they didn't do injustice to anyone. They didn't lash out and hurt anyone. They didn't transgress upon anyone. They didn't commit a crime against anyone. They are truly the innocent one, but still they're humble. Then on the other hand, you have the one like us, and when I say like us, it's one of those situations where I can include all of us, for sure, without a doubt. Because like the humble and pious sheikhs do, like Sheikh Samir, for example, when he says, people like me. When he doesn't talk about the people in the audience, he's like, I'm talking about myself. And we know, subhanAllah, to us, in our eyes, we're like, subhanAllah, if he's talking about himself, then where are we at? He says that about himself. But in this case, we're none of us are prophets. And we can all say, I can say that with confidence. So for people like us, who are not prophets, and we're not the innocent ones, we don't forgive, we don't pardon, we don't have the humbleness, we don't have the generosity. We have I need every single inch that's mine and I can't give anything. And as non-prophets, in terms of character. In terms of character, the prophets who are truly the innocent ones, truly the perfect ones, if someone does something bad to them, they don't retaliate with something similar. Even though, Islamically, in our rules, if a Muslim does injustice to you in a certain way, you can retaliate with the same exact thing in certain cases. And that's you're able to do that. You have that right. And you will not be unjust. Did the prophets do that? They forgave, they overlooked, they pardoned. So we see how we should be. We would not know that information if it wasn't for this chain of knowledge. And so the one who truly wants the light and the one who truly wants to, and they're focused, they're not even looking at the people around them or what's around them, and they're not comparing themselves based on the next person. They're comparing themselves based on myself, my judgment day, me standing on judgment day, my grave, my death. My death. The companions, they lived with the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. They witnessed miracles. And still some of them cheated other companions. Still some of them killed companions. Still some of them fornicated. Still some of them drank alcohol. Still some of them didn't pray. So you can't point the finger at anyone else for your own shortcomings. You can't say, oh, they didn't teach me. Oh, they didn't treat me special. Oh, they didn't give me VIP service. Oh, they didn't pamper me. Oh, they didn't make it as convenient as they could for me. Oh, they didn't look at me and smile. Oh, they didn't offer me this. Oh, they didn't invite me. You can't say that on Judgment Day. While you're saying, oh, they didn't do this and oh, they didn't do that, did you judge yourself? Did you judge yourself and say, did I fall short? Did I do what I was supposed to do? I'm the one that's responsible. It's my soul, my body, my life, my responsibility, my accountability. Instead of asking those questions, they didn't do this, they didn't do that, ask yourself those other questions. What did I do? Those who did injustice, those who transgressed, those who passed the bounds, those who hurt you, those who abused you, those who did crimes against you, they're going to be judged. And their injustice to you is not going to erase your injustice that you have done. And if you look at the pious companions, the elite companions, that was their focus. That's how they were. They just focused on the hereafter. They focused on their own grave. They would think about themselves in that sense. Right? That's the real sense that you should put yourself first. The real sense that you should put yourself first is not in the dunya, it's in the hereafter. Putting yourself first in getting reward. Putting yourself first in being the one who achieves the virtue. Putting yourself first in being the one who is ideal. For example, if a Muslim does injustice to you, be the first one to smile at him. Be the first one to say Assalamu alaikum to him. Be the first one to forgive him. If the people aren't donating, be the first one to donate. If the people aren't coming to the classes, be the first one to come to the class. This is the way for the Muslim. And as a result, you see that for any individual, if they choose the path of Islam, it is the way to solve every single emotional problem. Because when you dedicate your life to focusing on becoming the ideal Muslim, all those little worldly things that, some people, they lose sleep over, or some people, they feel negative emotions about, they realize it really doesn't matter. These dunya things or these social metrics that people, they judge themselves on, that they want to achieve and that they want to keep up appearances, it's a waste of time. And it's depressing and it's sad. But when you dedicate your life to getting reward, to becoming a better Muslim, you yourself, for your own soul, then you find the happiness. Then you find the fulfillment. There is no greater feeling of fulfillment than getting those special feelings that come with being an obedient Muslim. They're called like nafahat. They're special things. It's a special feeling. Special waves of emotion that you feel for being an obedient Muslim. And sometimes they come and sometimes they go, but then there's a time when you remain steadfast, they remain. And then you find the pleasure in obeying Allah. But still, whether we feel pleasure or not in obeying Allah, we have to obey. But so that's the way. The more that you get distracted or the more that you put attention and focus on dunya matters, the sadder you will be. The more depressed that you will be. So alhamdulillah for the knowledge of Ahlul Sunnah. And we could take that as, we could use that as a segue into the subject, which is, my intention was to go into extensive detail, and as per what is in the explanation of the Mukhtasar about the chapter of fasting. And so the reason that that introduction is fitting is because RamaDān is one of those pivotal opportunities. It's one of those times that Allah Ta'ala has granted for the Muslim so that he can have a high amount of reward. It is like a situation or a circumstance that is well fitted to turning your situation around. And mainly repentance, and if you're already a perfect Muslim, then becoming a better Muslim. And so if you can say by yourself that you've achieved the perfection in Islam, still you can become more perfect and more perfect and more perfect. And in terms of a human being, a Muslim, that's not a prophet. You can rise and rise and rise in the levels of righteousness, in the levels of wilayah. You can rise and rise and rise. And that's perfection and more perfect and more perfect. But if you know by yourself that you're not the perfect Muslim, RamaDān is an opportunity where you can get into that habit. You can get into that, you can get accustomed to that discipline. Because that's what comes with RamaDān. RamaDān, or the act of fasting which occurs during RamaDān, is one of the very apparent benefits and one of the apparent wisdoms and positive things that comes with the Islamic law. It's a perfect, explicit example of what it means to be a Muslim. Because during RamaDān, for example, like now, where we live and in the times that we live in, nowadays, probably any country that you live in, whether it's predominantly Muslim or whether there's a lot of Muslims in that country, if it's during RamaDān and you're going in the street eating, nobody's going to come and, stop you. Maybe someone might look at you, maybe someone might say something, but really it's not to the point where you will be stopped. And you should be. Right? The person that is eating and drinking during RamaDān without an excuse, they should be stopped. But what I'm saying is, the fact that the Muslim, during the day of RamaDān, he abstains from eating and drinking on purpose, and we're living in a time where food is super accessible. Like back in the days, they didn't have, let's say, refrigeration. So, if you wanted to get a certain type of food, you had to make it from scratch and consume it within a certain period of time. Now, you have so many options. You don't even have to get up from where you're standing and to go get the food. Just you have to go to your door. You order DoorDash or you order this or that. The food is made and prepared and packaged and brought to you. And all you have to do is open the door and grab it and eat it. In the past, you had to get the firewood, start the fire, what it is that you're going to make, consume it, etc. Now it's easy. So for the Muslim during this time, on purpose, he does not eat or drink throughout the day. Why is he doing that? Why is the Muslim doing that? Because he knows that Allah made it an obligation and he is following that. And he is purposely and abstaining from eating and drinking, even though he has access to it. Even though, for example, he could be inside of his house, nobody's around, opens the fridge, takes a sip of water, or takes a bite of something, and no person would know or see or realize or suspect that you can go about your day. But the Muslim, and he does that because he believes in Allah and he believes in Judgment Day. And it's something that outside of RamaDān, we can do it freely. And as long as it's halal, we can eat all day and drink all day. And as long as you don't harm yourself. But during RamaDān, you have to, just for that period of time, from the Fajr to the Maghrib, you stop yourself on purpose. That is the Iman. That's a manifestation of the Iman. And of course there's feelings and things that we go through that we can't stop. During RamaDān, you feel hungry, you feel thirsty. Yes, that's a hardship. Especially when you're used to, first thing you do when you wake up in the morning, eat or drink. Most people throughout the day, they need some constant consumption of something to get through the day. Because mashallah, we obviously, speaking for myself, we're spoiled. But then another wisdom, the Muslim who is accustomed to, whenever he wants something, he gets it out of the fridge. Whenever he wants to eat this, he desires to eat, for example, this type of thing, he gets it, he makes it, he has it. Because Allah Ta'ala provided him with that. During RamaDān, he stops himself. He wants it, but he stops himself on purpose. And so what does that? He would feel some type of way similar to who? Imagine the one who, when he wants something to eat, he can't eat it because he doesn't have it. Like the Muslim, like the poor Muslim who is starving. So you think about how hungry you feel, and it's only 10 o'clock in the morning, Allahu Akbar, and Maghrib isn't until, let's say, 6:30, and you're thinking it's only 10 a.m. My stomach is already rumbling. I'm already craving the sweet and savory foods, the salty foods. I need the coffee. And it's only 10. You got a long day of work ahead of you. Imagine the poor Muslim, that's his daily situation. Because they don't have it. So that would make the Muslim who has that sustenance thank Allah, be grateful to Allah. So there's all these things happening during RamaDān that should be happening. This internal accountability, this going through that experience is something deep, and it proves the validity of Islam. So the Muslims were ordered to fast RamaDān in the second year after the Hijrah. So, and fasting one of the lunar months is a law that has been revealed to the prophets and messengers before Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So the previous nations of Muslims, they also had to fast for a month. But the special thing about our nation is that Allah Ta'ala made the obligation of our fasting month to be during the best of all the months. Because RamaDān is the best of all the months. And that obligation was made in the second year after the Hijrah. How many years were the Muslims in Mecca before they migrated? Correct answer is only raise your hand. Let's hear from some of the young folks. How many years? Oh, the question, yes, I'll repeat the question. How many years before the migration did the Prophet ﷺ and the Muslims spend in Mecca? Okay, that's right, 13. So for 13 years, the Muslims didn't fast Ramadan. And then 2 years after they migrated, so a total of 15 years, that's when Ramadan, the Muslims started fasting Ramadan. Yes. On the fifth and the second year after the Hijrah, so it was 13 in Mecca, 2 after the Hijrah. So, depending on when, it was during Sha'ban. So, I would say more than halfway through the year. So, Alhamdulillah, that this is a virtue that Allah Ta'ala gave to this nation, the nation of Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, because we are the best of all the nations. So, as you know, as every Muslim knows, and because it is known by necessity in Islam, and it's one of the 5 greatest matters of Islam, fasting the month of Ramadan is an obligation. It is one of the greatest matters of Islam, one of the 5 greatest matters of Islam, and it is the best month. Just as the best of the nights is Laylatul Qadr, and just as the best day of the year is the day of Arafah, and just as the best day of the week is Al-Jumu'ah, Friday. And so this is and as we know, the virtue is given by Allah. So Allah Ta'ala judged that Ramadan is the best month. So it's the best month. Allah Ta'ala judged that the night of Al-Qadr is the best of the nights. Allah Ta'ala judged that the day of Arafah is the best of the days. And that the day of the Jumu'ah is the best day of the week. So the fasting of Ramadan becomes an obligation by completing 30 days of Sha'ban. Meaning 30 days from seeing the crescent of Sha'ban, and counting 30 days from there, or by one trustworthy male Muslim sighting the crescent of Ramadan after the Maghrib of the 29th. So what does it mean when we say trustworthy? This is from the Islamic terminology, al-adl. Who is al-adl? Al-adl هو من سلم من الكبائر ومن غلبة الصغائر على طاعاته مع كونه ملتزما بمروءة أمثاله، أي لا يشتغل بنحو تطيير الحمام ولا يكثر من الروايات المضحكة التي ما فيها ثمرة ولو كانت مباحة، ولا يكثر من لعب الشطرنج وأمثال ذلك، لأنه هذا يسقطه من عيون المسلمين، لا يجعلون فيه موضع الثقة. لكن لا يعني ذلك أنه ارتكب معصية، فقد يكون المسلم تقيا لكن ليس عدلا، معناه لا يقبل منه هذه الشهادة مثلا في رؤية هلال رمضان. So when we say al-adl in the Islamic terminology, we're referring to a specific Muslim. He is a Muslim, in this case male, who is free from enormous sins and from his small sins exceeding the number of his good deeds. Now I always wanted to ask my sheikhs, which I've never gotten a chance to, why the scholars specifically mention for his small sins not to exceed his good deeds, because that in itself is an enormous sin. But anyways, they mention it every time. But technically, it's the Muslim, the male Muslim, who is free from enormous sins, while that Muslim that's free from enormous sins, he adheres to the etiquettes of his pious peers. So, this is something in Arabic called al-muru'ah. So, adhering to the etiquettes of the pious peers, that's the meaning of it, that's what it means. So what exactly does it mean then, adhering to the etiquettes of the pious peers? It means that there's a certain behavior that is expected of a certain type of individual, of a certain social class, that he's expected to behave in that way. So one example that they give, for example, is that the Muslim scholar, and this is all depending on time and place. So the Muslim scholar, let's say, in a certain area, and for example, this is, I've seen it, for example, with my own eyes. In Ethiopia, any person who is considered a sheikh or a scholar or like an imam, they all dress the same. They all have the thobe, and then they all have a shawl, either with a turban or with something else, but always, every single time. Not just a thobe. So that's like the norm. So those things are taken into consideration as the etiquettes of the pious peers. So if in that area, for example, the imam, he went out of his house, let's say frequently, with just a thobe and nothing on his head and no shawl, then this would be considered that he's not adhering to the etiquettes of his pious peers, because who are his peers? Other imams. What's the behavior that they adhere to? That they wear the thobe and the shawl and something on their head, whether a turban or a qalansuwa. That's the norm. So that person who is an imam in that area, he doesn't do that. He goes outside just with a thobe and nothing on his head, no shawl. So he's not adhering to the etiquettes of his pious peers. He's not committed a sin, but if he were to testify about this, let's say seeing the crescent of RamaDān, the Muslim judge would not confirm that RamaDān starts tomorrow based on his testimony. That's what it means. So the Shaykh rahimahullah, he gave an example of someone that does not adhere to the etiquettes of their pious peers. He said, like the one who does not engage in, literally translated as flying pigeons. Right? This is something that many of us maybe are not, don't know what it is. But basically in some countries, there are people that stand on the roof and they have a stick and it has like a flag on it. It's a long stick, and they stand on the roof and they swirl the stick around in a circle. And so all the pigeons that are in that area, that are flying in that area, they start flying in a circle around that stick. Now I don't know what other types of techniques that they use, but subhanAllah, these pigeons, they start all of them flying all around in a circle, and then somehow he brings them down and he puts them in a cage. So either he sells them or he slaughters them and roasts them, barbecue pigeons. But whatever he does with them, so doing that act, it would make that person not adil, not trustworthy in testimony. Even if, let's say, he didn't involve himself into anything haram. Although doing that with the pigeons, the person might, let's say, catch a pigeon that's not his. So there is some, so exactly, there is some like risky type of aspect to it, that perhaps he might accidentally, let's say, one of those pigeons that belongs to somebody else sees the thing flying around, he goes and he joins the rest of the pigeons.
Most of them of times they do it on purpose too.
And of course, there are also crooks that this is their, what they do.
And they do big fight.
That's their racket.
There's big fight between people.
Oh, no, yes, subhanAllah. No. Yes. No. Yes. Yeah. Yes. Exactly, yeah. So there is scenarios of that pigeon flying that would cause a person to fall into a sin because he takes somebody else's property unjustly. But in the case where he doesn't, it's something that if the person does it, it would disqualify him from having his testimony accepted by the Muslim judge. Another example that he gave is an example of not adhering to the etiquettes of the pious peers is like the person who frequently tells funny stories even if they were permissible. Frequently tells funny stories that have no benefit to them. Even if they were neutral, even if they were, let's say, not recommended and not disliked, but they have no benefit. The person who does that frequently, he would not be adil. And also, the person who frequently plays chess. So, the one who frequently plays chess, he doesn't play to the point where he would be neglecting his obligations, but he would be playing it frequently. This makes him not adil. He said, also the Shaykh said, the job, or like having the job of a waste management and a garbage person, a garbage man, it makes the person not adil in the category of testimony, except if the only reason he's doing that is out of necessity. And necessity, darura. Yani, like it's an emergency. And it's not like he had different options and he chose that career. It's like that's the only thing that he could find, that's the only thing that he could do to survive, to support his family, etc. In that case, it's an exception. So in the case where it's darura, فَلَا يَكُونُ ذَلِكَ خَارِمًا لِلْمُرُوءَةِ. Like if he didn't find what to sustain himself with except that, so he engaged in that. Also among what takes the person out of adl, or among what makes the person breach the mannerisms of his pious peers or following the etiquettes of his pious peers is dancing. Even if it was the dancing that's not forbidden. So for example, there's certain type of dancing that's not forbidden. So if the person does that, even if he's not doing haram, even if he's pious, if he testifies before the Muslim judge, his testimony won't be accepted. Because he won't be adil. Likewise, the one who is walking through the market and he is not among the inhabitants of the market while eating. So walking and eating through the market while not being an inhabitant of the market, this takes the person out of the etiquettes of his pious peers. As for in the wilderness, the companions of the Prophet ﷺ used to walk and eat. So walking and eating in and of itself in this case is not breaching of the etiquettes of the pious peers. It's specifically walking through the market. So if someone that is adil, a male that is adil, if he testifies before the Muslim judge that he saw with the naked eye the crescent of RamaDān, then the fasting of RamaDān the next day is confirmed for him and for others. Okay? And the way that he would testify, he would say, I testify that I have seen the crescent of RamaDān on this night. Now, if the person, now this is something that comes from a big book in the Shafi'i school, which is a very beneficial book. It's called Rawd al-Talib, mixed together with the matan, the explanation of Rawd al-Talib. It says فرع لو لم يعتقد غدا أول رمضان أو اعتقده لا بسبب وفي نسخة بلا سبب ونوى الصوم جازما بالنية صورة أو مترددا كأن قال ليلة 30 شعبان أصوم غدا أو ليلة 30 شعبان أصوم غدا إن دخل رمضان سواء أقال معه وإلا فأنا مفطر أو أنا مفطر أو متطوع أم لا تجوز أو لم تجزئه وإن دخل رمضان. يعني فهنا يعني لأنه عنده الشك في النية، متردد في النية، ليس متأكدا، لم يعتقد أن غدا أول رمضان. So here the Shaykh mentions a case that if the person did not believe that tomorrow is the first of Ramadan, or he believed that it was without a reason, and he intended to fast Ramadan with certainty in the intention and as an image or apparently, or the person was hesitant, like if he said on the night of the 30th of Sha'ban, I'll fast tomorrow if Ramadan is in, even if he says it together, and otherwise he says, if not, then if it's not Ramadan, then I will break my fast, or I will fast as a sunnah. This would not be valid, even if Ramadan does enter, because the origin is for Ramadan not to be in, and because he fasted while doubting and he didn't rely on a reason. So the person can't say, if tomorrow's Ramadan, I'm going to fast, and if it turns out that it's not Ramadan, then I'll break my fast, or I'll just continue fasting as a sunnah. That won't be valid. The person has to know. And in the first part of that case where he intends firmly that he's going to fast the next day, that doesn't affect, it doesn't make it valid. Because he did not believe that it was from Ramadan with a reason. So in reality, he does not have the true certainty. And instead what happens is just that he made it up himself, he imagined it himself. وَإِنَّمَا يَحْصُلُ لَهُ حَدِيثُ نَفْسٍ لَا اعْتِبَارَ بِهِ. And the person who claimed that tomorrow's Ramadan for sure, without a reason, without relying on a reason, he doesn't really have the certainty. Now if he believes that tomorrow is the first of Ramadan for a reason, like to believe it because of being informed by someone that he believes or that he trusts, like a woman or a slave or a boy that is, let's say, sharp and intelligent, a prepubescent, someone who's prepubescent that's sharp and intelligent, he knows that they tell the truth, and he has tried them before and they're truthful, and so because of them telling him that, he has the firm belief or the firm intention that he will fast the next day, then this is valid. أجزأه إن بان من رمضان. So this next case is فإن اعتقده أول رمضان بسبب كأن اعتقده بخبر من يثق به من نحو امرأة أو عبيد أو صبيان ذوي رشد مختبرين بالصدق وجزم بنية الصوم أجزأه إن بان من رمضان. So in this case, if the person believes that tomorrow is the first of Ramadan because of a reason, like let's say a woman came to him and said, I saw the crescent of Ramadan, and he believes her because he knows that she tells the truth, then his fasting is valid. And if it does turn out that it is Ramadan. Now this doesn't apply to the prepubescent girl, only applies to the prepubescent boy. Then it says, if someone that he trusts tells him that he saw the crescent, whether it was a free person or a slave or a woman or an enormous sinner or someone close to being pubescent and intended to fast Ramadan based on that, and it turns out that it was Ramadan, then this is valid. Because he intended it while being over 50% sure that it is the first of Ramadan, and it was the case that it was. Now, in this case, if the person hesitates and says, tomorrow I'll fast Ramadan, and if it's not Ramadan, then I will be doing a sunnah fast, this would not be valid. Okay? Because he doesn't have the firm intention. So what it comes down to is the firm intention. So if a woman tells you that she saw the crescent, and you believe her, and based on that you have the firm intention to fast tomorrow, it's valid. Now, it is a condition for the one who's obligated to fast, that he has to be Muslim. So the non-Muslim, even if he does what we do, he's not going to have a valid fast. Because you have to be a Muslim in order for the act of worship to be valid. So it's a condition for the acts of worship in general that the person has to be Muslim. And in order for the person to be obligated to fast, on top of being Muslim, he has to be accountable, which means pubescent and sane. Because obviously the Muslim, he already received the basic message. So the original kafir, the original blasphemer, he is not told while he is in his state of blasphemy, fast. Rather, he is told to embrace Islam and then fast. And if the accountable non-Muslim, if he fails to do that, in the hereafter he's going to be punished and tortured for not embracing Islam and not fasting. For not embracing Islam and for eating during Ramadan. Also, it is not an obligation upon the prepubescent, but it is an obligation upon the two guardians to order the child. After the child has reached 7 lunar years, if he is able. Not if he feels really hungry. Some kids, they eat and they eat and they eat and they eat. So they're accustomed to eating. Their parents give them food all day long. They let them eat all day long. So when it's time for Ramadan, like we said, at 10 in the morning, that 7-year-old, he's going to say, I'm hungry. And they might make it seem like they're really suffering, and that someone might say that they're going to die of starvation. But the parent has to be strong and not give in to what that child wants, because obviously you're obligated as a parent, as a guardian, Muslim guardian, to order them to fast. So you're not allowed to give them the food. So, what does it mean not able? It means that the child, let's say, has a sickness or an ailment that if he fasts, he's going to die. If he fasts, he's going to get sick. If he fasts, he's going to faint. And he can't take it. In that case, then the guardian is not obligated to order the child. Also, it's not an obligation to fast upon the insane person, and the one who doesn't have their mind. As for the apostate, he is obligated to make up what he missed of the fasting during the days of his apostasy. This is according to Al-Imam Al-Shafi'i rahimahullah. As for the three Imams, Al-Imam Malik, Al-Imam Ahmad, and Al-Imam Abu Hanifa, it is not an obligation upon the apostate to make up the fasting. The original non-Muslim, like we said, he will be punished in the hereafter. The original accountable non-Muslim, he will be punished in the hereafter for leaving out fasting. Just like he will be punished for leaving out praying and the like. It is not an obligation to fast upon the one who is not able to fast physically because of old age or because of a sickness that is not terminal. There are some sicknesses, they come and they go. And the person gets it, and then after a while he'll be healthy again. So if the person has that sickness that eventually gets cured, the sickness that does not eventually get cured, the sickness that is terminal, or the person is very old and so he can't physically fast, then he's not obligated to fast. Likewise, the woman who's on her period or postpartum bleeding, they're not obligated to fast. Rather, they have to make it up. And the one who is sick but not with a terminal sickness, he's not obligated to fast either, but he has to make it up once he gets better. As for the one who cannot fast because of old age or because they have a terminal illness, they themselves, they're not obligated to fast, and they can't make it up, obviously, because their reason for not being able to fast doesn't go away. So what they do is something else. In the Shafi'i school, they pay fidyah. And of course, and remember, if you're going to do that in the Shafi'i school, it has to be with the actual food. It cannot be the equivalent value in currency. In the Hanafi school, it can be, but in the Hanafi school, you have to take into consideration the detail that for the one who is sick, a sickness that he does not get cured from, he doesn't pay the fidyah. Only for the elderly, what they call in Arabic al-Shaykh al-Fani, the old elderly person that he is elderly, like old, very old. I don't want to say the word old, but very old. Yes. الشيخ الفاني هكذا يقولون، هو معناه هذا، يعني الذي تقدم عمره، يعني الذي هكذا الشيخ الفاني، معناه العجوز، يعني الذي كان عمره هو هكذا يعبرون الشيخ الفاني، يعني بهذه الصفة الفاني. نعم هكذا الحنفي school. So anyone who wants to pay the fidyah with currency, they need to get those details in the Hanafi school. For the woman who's on her period or postpartum bleeding, it's forbidden for her to abstain from eating and drinking and from the things that the fasting person abstains from with the intention of fasting. But if she abstains just to be in solidarity with the rest of the Muslims, she's on her period or postpartum, and she doesn't want to be the only one that's like, eating cheesecake in everybody's face while everybody else is fasting. So she purposely, doesn't eat or drink in front of people and waits until the Maghrib time so she can share the food with everybody else. She can do that without the intention of fasting. If the woman gives birth while she's fasting and no postpartum blood exits with the birth, she does not break her fast, except if the midwife inserts her hand inside of her vagina. If the fasting woman sees blood during the time of menstruation, and during the time where she can have her period, then immediately she's able to eat as soon as the blood comes out. And as the blood is coming out. If the woman on her period, she's sleeping, and then she wakes up after the Fajr, and the period blood has stopped, she does not fast that day. But if she wants, she abstains from eating and drinking, like we said before, and if she ate, it would be permissible. So the woman who goes to sleep, when she went to sleep, she's on her period. And when she went to sleep, she was on her period. The next day she woke up and she saw that she's not bleeding anymore. That day she's not fasting. She's not fasting that day. If
she woke up after Fajr?
After Fajr, yeah, after Fajr.
She wakes up before?
If she woke up before Fajr, she saw she's not bleeding, then she intends and she fasts, yeah.
If she believes the blood stops before the Fajr.
So if the woman who's on her period, if she believes or thinks or assumes that the blood will stop before the Fajr, based on her norm or based on what's her habit, and so she, the night before, she intended to fast the next day, before the Fajr, and so when she woke up after the Fajr, she found that she stopped bleeding, then her fast is valid. And it's permissible for the menstruating woman and the postpartum bleeding woman and any person who breaks their fast with an excuse, and it is an obligation upon the menstruating woman, the postpartum bleeding woman, and any person that breaks their fast with an excuse or without an excuse, except the one who broke their fast because they are elderly or they have a terminal illness, then those people that we mentioned other than those two, have to make it up. So when a person breaks their fast with an excuse, once that excuse ends, and then they have to make up the fast. And in the case where they're excused, they're not sinful, and they have until the next RamaDān to make it up. In the case where they don't fast, and they don't have an excuse, on top of being sinful, they have to make up that fast immediately after the first of Shawwal. Now, it is permissible for the person to break their fast, for the obligatory fast, because of certain reasons. One reason is a travel that is a shortening distance. And what does it mean, a shortening distance? It means a travel that the Muslim, he can shorten the Dhuhr prayer to 4 rak'ahs and shorten the Asr prayer to 4 rak'ahs. And this is a travel of 2 marhalas. So if a person is traveling that travel of that distance, which according to one of the sayings in the Shafi'i school is approximately 27 American miles outside of the borders of the town, then the person is allowed to break their fast. So if this travel, if it was initiated before the dawn, then the person who was in that travel, he can break his fast for that day. If it was initiated after the dawn, then for that specific day, he cannot break his fast. But if he's continuing in the judgment of being a traveler after that day, then for the subsequent days, he can break his fast. And let's say the first day he travels after Fajr. He travels during Duha time. But his travel doesn't end until 2 days later. So for those 2 days after he started his travel, he can break his fast if he wants. Exactly, in the Shafi'i school. And He cannot break the fast now. He cannot break his fast now. And the condition for that, for the Muslim to be able to do that in the travel, is that it is a travel that is not a sinful travel. No. As for the one who goes out traveling after the Fajr, it is not permissible for him to break his fast during that day, according to Imam al-Shafi'i and Abu Hanifa and Malik. As for Imam Ahmad ibn Hanbal, he said it is permissible to break the fast on the day that the traveling started, even if he goes out after the Dhuhr. So there's a difference of opinion in that. Another excuse for not fasting, the obligatory fast, is having a sickness that contains a difficulty with fasting. A difficulty that would make it permissible to make tayammum. It means if by him fasting and continuing to fast with this sickness, it would be a difficulty that's similar to the difficulty of using the water for purification, and that, for example, instead of using the water, the person could make tayammum. In that case, the person is allowed to break his fast. Like the one who is not able to use the water to make wudu. It's permissible for him to make tayammum because of the difficulty. So for example, if the person fasts, he'll faint. If the person fasts, he'll die. If the person fasts, he'll lose the function of an organ. If the person fasts, he'll get a deformity. Nah. أكيد. لكن كذلك في هذا الموضع عندما يقولون لا تحتمل عادة، يذكرون الشخص قد مثلا يثابر على هذا العمل وإن كان فيه مشقة لا تحتمل، فإذا كان وصل إلى حد الضرر يحرم عليه ذلك. لكن ليس عندي ضابط في هذا التفريق الآن في هذا الباب، لكن أعلم أنه قد يوجد عمل فيه تلك المشقة التي لا تحتمل عادة، ومع ذلك الشخص يفعلها، وإذا وصل هو إلى حال الضرر أو حد الضرر يكون حراما عليه أن يفعل. نعم أكيد. هذا هنا المرض. So if a person has a sickness that if he does fast with that sickness, he would face a great difficulty, a difficulty that would be like the difficulty that makes it valid to make tayammum instead of using water. And they mentioned that. For example, when they say, if you have water but you can't use it because you'll be harmed, they say, if you use the water you will die, or if you use the water your sickness will become longer, or if you use the water you'll lose the function of an organ, or if you use the water you'll become disfigured in your face or in an apparent part of your body. Those are all excuses for not using water for wudu or for ghusl and instead making tayammum. So if something similar like that happens with fasting, then you're allowed to not fast. So then there's this case, whoever is compelled in his work, and he has to work during Ramadan, and he's not able to, let's say, take that time off. Because if he takes that time off, he won't find his necessary sustenance and the sustenance of those whom he's obligated to support, and he's not able to fast with that job. This person, if that's his case, he intends at night, the firm intention, to fast the next day, and then during the day, he checks his situation. So if he would, let's say, collapse, if he keeps on fasting, then he is allowed to break his fast. And if he finds himself that he's strong and he won't collapse if he continues fasting, then he stays fasting. As for the one who owns what suffices him and who he's obligated to support, and he's not able to fast along with working, then he has to leave out that work and fast instead. So do we understand the case here? If the person, he has to work, and he can't miss work during Ramadan. He can't take the month off. And that type of work that he does, if he fasts while doing that work, he might collapse, faint. So what does he do? Every single night, he makes the firm intention to fast. He starts his work, and when he gets to a point during the day where he says, if I continue like this without breaking my fast, I'm going to faint, I'm going to collapse, something is going to happen to me. And if he is able to be strong for the rest of the day, he continues fasting. He takes it like that, day by day. And that's if he has to work in order to get the necessity sustenance, not like the extra sustenance. No. But the one who can afford to take off that month, he has what he needs, he doesn't have to work technically, and he's not able to work and fast, then he chooses the fasting over work. No. So nowadays, many people, they spend money on things that they don't necessarily need, and so they would work to pay those things. Like the Hajj was saying, like the cable and the TV. SubhanAllah. Cable is really expensive. I don't even know why people have it in the age of the internet. No. If you mean for the nafaqah for the wife, or you mean just in general, like even like a single person, a bachelor?
I thought it requires a special lesson.
So for sure, for the nafaqah for the wife, there is siraj. You have to have a siraj. Provide a siraj. The thing is that you can still have a siraj without electricity. You can have candles. Let's bring the candles back.
That's for divorce.
Huh?
She might ask for divorce.
She might ask for divorce. SubhanAllah. Is that the times that we've come to?
There's not a way that requires a special lesson,
Yeah, SubhanAllah.
A lot of people are confused what are the details.
SubhanAllah.
The washer and the dryer and the fridge.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah, the fridge, no. Yeah, well, this lesson, mashallah, is good. But the point for the electricity, do they let you have a place without electricity? Like if you have an apartment, can you just not tell FBL like, hey, I'm not going to use electricity. I'm going to use candles. Will they let you? But like, let's say if you don't pay, right? It's overdue. What are they're going to cut it off.
Not supposed to.
Yeah, I'm going to investigate this issue. Let's get some candles. But then what are we gonna then? I don't know. In the tropical countries, the way that the houses are built, they're not conducive for the weather. Like if it was back in the days, they would make the houses in a way where like the breeze comes in and it could be cool inside, insulation. But the way these places are built, they're not. If you don't have the AC on, it's gonna be an oven. SubhanAllah. May Allah make us as perfect Muslims. There's more details. And my intention was to do it in two parts, part 1 and part 2. So I guess next or tomorrow we'll do the second part. There's more important details. Like, let's say for the intention in the Shafi'i school, you have to make the intention before Fajr. Sometimes it happens that you're so tired, you're so exhausted, you ate, and it's after Maghrib, after Isha, and then you fell asleep, and you weren't planning to sleep the whole night. But you fell asleep, and then the next thing you know, you wake up and it's 8 o'clock in the morning. So it's past Fajr, you're already, but then you don't remember, like, did you make the intention or not? Or you think you're sure that you didn't make the intention. What happens in that case? In the Shafi'i school, khalas, that's it. For that day, you just don't eat and don't drink. You act like a fasting person.
يمسك.
Yeah, يمسك يجب. لأن نهار رمضان له حكم. ها؟ لا علم. يعني قال يعني هو يعني يظن ما نوى. أما الشاك هذا يحاول أن يتذكر. أكيد يمسك وجوبا، لكن في حكم صحة صومه يحتاج أن مثلا يتذكر ولو بعد أيام. And we'll go over the rest, inshallah. This is very important because the shaitan tries to make the Muslim think that he's not doing it right. But always remember, the shaitan is not trying to help you. He's not trying to make sure that you're doing your fasting right. He's not trying to come and make you like say, hey, are you sure you're doing your fast right? Hey, make sure that you are doing it right. The shaitan's not going to do that because the shaitan doesn't want you to fast. He doesn't want you to have a valid fast. He wants to disturb your mind. He wants to disturb your heart so that you think that you're not fasting right. So don't listen to the shaitan. Yes, question. Hold on over there first. No. Somebody had a question over there? Yes.
Oh, I just wanted you to translate to me because I only understood some, so I wanted to.
We're talking about the case where the person, they went to sleep and then they woke up and their belief is that they didn't intend. And they believe that they fell asleep before they intended and they woke up after Fajr. So they're not fasting according to a Shafi'i during that day. But they still have to abstain from what the fasting person abstains from. Yeah, then she said, but the one who doubts. So he woke up in the morning and he's like, did I intend last night or not? According to a Shafi'i. Did I immediately after I ate and make sure that I brushed my teeth so I wouldn't have any residue and set an alarm to wake up for suhoor, did I intend or not? Which obviously, the way I'm saying it, that person obviously intended. He may have put the alarm for suhoor, etc. But he gets in that situation, he really thinks, did I not, did I intend? He tries to remember. He has to try to remember. No.
Is a person with autism obligated to fast?
The question is a person with autism obligated to fast? There are some extremes on the spectrum, but would there be a certain that would affect them, they wouldn't be able to fast? Maybe, if they're to a certain extreme, maybe not. But
I asked about this question. The person with autism, if they can differentiate between like the $5 bill and $10 bill, then he is.
Yeah, but is there something that would cause them to wouldn't be able to fast? Like in terms of eating and drinking and stuff like that? Yeah, that's what he was saying. So from that aspect, if because of where they are on the spectrum, if they are no longer categorized as sane Islamically, then obviously they wouldn't have to fast. But some people are autistic and they're fully functional.
So some situations differ from other situations?
No. So it's not just all across the board one way when it comes to autism. No. Any other questions? We'll try to start a little bit earlier tomorrow so that we can spend more time, because I really want to finish this whole chapter. We're going to talk about the intention, and we're going to talk about some invalidators, we're going to talk about some exceptions. Al-Fidya, we're going to talk about some things that don't break the fast, some things that do break the fast, because these things come out during Ramadan. Like, for example, the nasal drip. We're going to talk about the nasal drip. All these things, inshallah, tomorrow. And we ask Allah Ta'ala to make us as perfect Muslims, to make our final words. La ilaha illallah Muhammadun Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. نهلل لا إله إلا الله. اللهم صل على سيدنا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه وسلم. ربي اغفر لي وللمؤمنين والمؤمنات. بارك الله فيكم. السلام عليكم.